What if I told you that most of your stress, anxiety, and overthinking isn't caused by your life, but by your thoughts about your life? What if you could train your mind to stay calm, clear, and in control no matter what happens? Stay with me, because these ancient Stoic habits can completely change how you think and how you live. Your mind is powerful, but without control, it becomes your greatest source of suffering. Overthinking begins when you try to control what you cannot. You replay conversations, imagine worst-case scenarios, and worry about things that may never happen. The Stoics understood this deeply. They knew that peace does not come from controlling the world, but from controlling your response to it. One of the most powerful habits you can build is learning to separate what is within your control and what is not. Your thoughts, your actions, your decisions, these belong to you. But outcomes, opinions, and external events do not. The moment you focus only on what you can control, your mind becomes lighter. You stop wasting energy on things that don't belong to you. Another habit is observing your thoughts without reacting to them. Not every thought deserves your attention. Some thoughts are just noise, fear, doubt, insecurity. When you learn to watch your thoughts instead of becoming them, you create space. And in that space, you find calm. Silence plays a major role in calming the mind. In a world full of noise, constant input keeps your mind restless. The Stoics valued quiet reflection. When you sit in silence, away from distractions, you begin to understand yourself better. You gain clarity. You see things for what they are, not what your emotions make them seem. Acceptance is another key habit. Much of overthinking comes from resisting reality. You want things to be different. You replay situations, wishing you had acted differently. But the Stoics taught that peace comes from accepting what has already happened. You cannot change the past, but you can control how you respond to it. You also need to train your mind to focus on the present moment. Overthinking lives in the past and the future. It thrives on what if and if only. But the present moment is where life actually happens. When you bring your attention back to now, your mind becomes calmer. Gratitude is another powerful tool. When you focus on what you have instead of what you lack, your perspective shifts. The Stoics practiced appreciating even the smallest things. This habit reduces anxiety and brings a sense of peace. You must also learn to let go of the need for approval. Overthinking often comes from worrying about what others think. But the truth is, you cannot control their opinions. The more you try, the more you lose yourself. When you stop seeking validation, your mind becomes free. Another important habit is preparing your mind for challenges. The Stoics would imagine difficulties before they happened, not to create fear, but to build strength. When you expect challenges, you are not shocked by them. You remain calm and ready. Discipline is essential. A calm mind is not built overnight. It requires consistent effort. You must train your thoughts daily. Replace negative thinking with rational thinking. Over time, this becomes natural. Finally, you must remind yourself that nothing is permanent. Problems, emotions, situations, they all pass. When you understand this, you stop holding on to things so tightly. You allow life to flow, and your mind becomes at ease. Now here are the powerful Stoic habits that will help you stop worrying and overthinking. Control what you can and let go of what you cannot. Observe your thoughts without reacting. Embrace silence and reflection. Accept reality as it is. Focus on the present moment. Practice gratitude daily. Let go of the need for approval. Prepare your mind for challenges. Build daily discipline. Remember that everything is temporary. If you start applying these habits, your life will change. Not instantly, but steadily. Your mind will become calmer. Your thoughts will become clearer. And you will feel a sense of control you've never experienced before. But remember, knowledge is not enough. You must practice. Every day, consistently. That is how transformation happens. There is a hidden reason why your mind refuses to stay calm. It is not because your life is too difficult. It is not because you are weak. It is because your mind has been trained, over time, to expect chaos. Every time you replay a situation, every time you imagine something going wrong, every time you worry about things you cannot control, you are reinforcing a pattern. And patterns, once repeated enough, become your default. This is why overthinking feels automatic. You don't choose it anymore, it chooses you. But here is the truth that changes everything. What was learned can be unlearned. The Stoics understood this long before modern psychology existed. They believed that the mind is like a muscle. If you train it to focus on fear, it becomes anxious. If you train it to focus on control, it becomes calm. So the question is not whether you can stop overthinking. The question is whether you are willing to retrain your mind. Because that is what this journey requires. It requires awareness. It requires discipline. It requires patience. And most importantly, it requires honesty. You must be honest about the thoughts you entertain. Honest about the habits you repeat. Honest about the ways you allow your mind to control you. Because until you see it clearly, you cannot change it. One of the most powerful shifts you can make is realizing that not every thought is true. Your mind will tell you stories. It will exaggerate problems. It will predict negative outcomes. But just because a thought appears in your mind does not mean it reflects reality. This is where most people get trapped. They believe everything they think. And that belief creates anxiety. But when you begin to question your thoughts, everything changes. You ask yourself, is this true? Is this helpful? Is this within my control? And if the answer is no, you let it go, not forcefully, not with frustration, but with awareness. You simply choose not to engage. This is a skill. And like any skill, it improves with practice. At first, it will feel difficult. Your mind will resist. It will try to pull you back into old patterns. But if you stay consistent, something powerful happens. You create distance between yourself and your thoughts. You realize that you are not your thoughts. You are the observer. And that realization brings freedom. Because once you are no longer controlled by every thought, your mind becomes quieter, more stable, more focused. Another important shift is learning to slow down your thinking. Overthinking often comes from rushing. Your mind jumps from one idea to another, from one fear to another, without pause. But when you slow down, you interrupt that cycle. You take a breath. You ground yourself. You bring your attention back to the present. This simple act can calm your mind instantly. It may seem small, but it is powerful. Because it gives you control. And control brings peace. You also need to understand that your environment plays a major role in your mental state. Constant noise, endless scrolling, and information overload keep your mind in a state of agitation. The Stoics lived differently. They valued simplicity. They valued quiet. They valued space. And you can apply this in your own life. Reduce the noise. Create moments of stillness. Give your mind time to rest. Because a restless mind cannot be calm. As you continue practicing these habits, you will notice subtle changes. Your thoughts become less intense. Your reactions become more controlled. Situations that once triggered anxiety no longer have the same effect. This is progress, and it builds over time. You begin to trust yourself more. You realize that you can handle situations without overthinking them. You realize that you don't need to predict every outcome to feel safe. And that realization is powerful. Because it frees you from the need to control everything. There is also a deeper understanding that begins to develop. You start to see that most of your worries were unnecessary. The things you feared often never happened. The situations you overanalyzed didn't matter as much as you thought. And this awareness changes your perspective. You stop taking every thought so seriously. You stop giving every worry your attention. You become more selective, more intentional, and that selectiveness protects your peace. Another important habit is learning to redirect your focus. Instead of dwelling on problems, you focus on solutions. Instead of imagining worst-case scenarios, you focus on what you can do right now. This shift is simple, but powerful. Because it moves your mind from fear to action. And action reduces anxiety. You no longer feel stuck. You feel capable. And that feeling builds confidence. You also learn to embrace uncertainty. Overthinking often comes from the need for certainty. You want to know how things will turn out. You want guarantees. But life doesn't work that way. And the Stoics understood this. They accepted uncertainty as part of life. And instead of resisting it, they prepared for it. They focused on being ready, not on being certain. This mindset reduces anxiety. Because you are no longer trying to control the uncontrollable. You are simply preparing yourself to handle whatever comes. And that is enough. As you continue this journey, you will notice that your mind becomes more resilient. Challenges no longer overwhelm you. Unexpected situations no longer create panic. You remain calm, focused, in control, and that is the goal. Not to eliminate problems, but to strengthen your response. Because life will always have challenges. But your reaction to them is what determines your experience. There is also a sense of freedom that comes with this transformation. You are no longer trapped in your own mind. You are no longer constantly worrying, constantly analyzing, constantly stressing. You feel lighter, more present, more alive, and that is what makes all of this worth it. But remember, this is not a one-time change. It is a continuous process. You must practice these habits daily. You must stay aware. You must stay disciplined. Because your mind will always try to return to old patterns. And it is your responsibility to guide it, to train it, to control it. That is the path to a calm mind. If you've made it this far, it means you are ready for change. So don't stop here. There is a silent battle happening inside your mind every single day. Most people don't even realize it's there. They think their stress comes from outside, from people, from situations, from life itself. But the truth is, the real struggle is internal. It's the constant noise, the endless stream of thoughts, the need to figure everything out, to control everything, to predict everything. And the more you try to control everything, the more your mind spirals. This is the trap of overthinking. It convinces you that if you just think a little longer, analyze a little deeper, worry a little more, you'll find peace. But the opposite is true. The more you engage with it, the stronger it becomes. The Stoics understood something most people ignore. Peace is not found in solving every thought. It is found in learning which thoughts deserve your attention. And most of them don't. Think about it: how many of your worries actually matter? How many of the scenarios you imagine ever come true? How many times have you stressed about something, only to realize later that it wasn't worth it? Your mind creates problems that don't exist, and then it tries to solve them. That cycle is exhausting, but you can break it. The first step is awareness. You have to catch yourself in the act. Notice when your mind starts to spiral. Notice when you begin to overanalyze. Notice when you are worrying about something outside your control. This awareness is powerful, because it interrupts the pattern. Instead of being lost in your thoughts, you step back and observe them. And in that moment, you regain control. You realize that you have a choice. You can continue down the path of overthinking, or you can step away from it. Most people never make that choice consciously. They just follow their thoughts wherever they go. But you are different. You are learning to lead your mind, not follow it. And that changes everything. Another powerful habit is learning to accept imperfection. Overthinking often comes from the desire to get everything right, to make the perfect decision, to avoid mistakes. But perfection is an illusion, and chasing it creates anxiety. The Stoics believed in doing your best and accepting the outcome. You focus on effort, not perfection. You act with intention, but you don't attach yourself to results. This mindset frees you, because you no longer feel the pressure to control everything. You simply do what you can, and you let go of the rest. There is also a deep sense of calm that comes from simplifying your life. The more choices you have, the more your mind has to process. The more information you consume, the more your mind has to handle. Complexity creates noise. Simplicity creates peace. This is why the Stoics lived with intention. They reduced unnecessary decisions. They focused on what truly mattered. And in doing so, they created mental clarity. You can do the same. Simplify your routines. Simplify your priorities. Simplify your focus. And you will notice your mind becoming calmer, because it is no longer overwhelmed. Another important lesson is learning to detach from outcomes. Overthinking thrives on attachment. You want things to go a certain way. You expect specific results. And when things don't go as planned, your mind starts to spiral. But when you detach, you free yourself from that cycle. You still care. You still put in effort. But you are not emotionally dependent on the outcome. You understand that you cannot control everything. And that understanding brings peace. Because you are no longer fighting reality. You are working with it. As you continue practicing these habits, you will notice something powerful. You become less reactive. Situations that once triggered anxiety no longer affect you the same way. You pause before responding. You think before reacting. You choose your actions with intention. And that level of control changes your experience of life. Because life is not just about what happens. It's about how you respond. There is also a deeper level of confidence that develops. Not the loud, external kind, but a quiet, internal confidence. The kind that comes from knowing you can handle your thoughts. The kind that comes from trusting yourself. The kind that comes from being in control. And that confidence is unshakable. Because it is built from within. You no longer rely on external validation to feel secure. You don't need constant reassurance. You don't need everything to go perfectly. You are stable, grounded, calm, and that is rare. Another powerful shift is learning to focus on action instead of thought. Overthinking keeps you stuck in your head. It creates the illusion of progress without actual movement. But action breaks that cycle. When you take action, you move forward. You gain clarity. You build momentum. And momentum reduces anxiety. Because you are no longer stuck. You are progressing. Even if it's slow. Even if it's imperfect. It is still progress. And that matters. You also learn to trust the process. Not everything needs to be figured out immediately. Not every problem needs a solution right now. Some things take time, and that's okay. Patience is a powerful tool. It allows you to stay calm in uncertainty. It allows you to move forward without pressure. It allows you to trust that things will unfold as they should. And that trust reduces overthinking. Because you are no longer trying to force everything. You are allowing things to happen. As you continue this journey, your relationship with your mind changes. You no longer see it as something that controls you. You see it as something you can guide. You train it, you discipline it, you direct it, and in doing so, you create a sense of order. A sense of calm. A sense of control. This is the goal. Not to eliminate thoughts, but to manage them. Not to stop thinking, but to think clearly. Not to avoid problems, but to handle them calmly. And when you reach this level, life becomes different. Lighter, simpler, more peaceful. Because you are no longer trapped in your own mind. You are free. There is something most people never realize about overthinking. It is not just a habit of the mind. It is often a habit of fear. Fear of making the wrong decision. Fear of being judged. Fear of failure. Fear of uncertainty. And when fear quietly sits behind your thoughts, your mind begins to search for control. It begins to analyze everything. It begins to replay moments. It begins to imagine outcomes that may never happen. And slowly, your mind becomes a place where peace struggles to exist. But the Stoics saw this clearly. They understood that fear grows stronger when it is fed by imagination. The more you allow your mind to wander into possibilities you cannot control, the more anxious you become. This is why one of the most powerful habits you can develop is grounding yourself in reality. Not in imagined scenarios, not in assumptions, but in what is actually happening right now. When you focus on reality, most worries disappear. Because reality is often simpler than the stories your mind creates. Your mind might say something will go wrong. But in reality, nothing has gone wrong yet. Your mind might say people are judging you. But in reality, most people are focused on their own lives. Your mind exaggerates. Reality stabilizes. And learning to return to reality is one of the strongest mental skills you can build. Another Stoic habit that helps calm the mind is learning to pause before reacting. Most overthinking happens after quick emotional reactions. Something happens, and your mind immediately begins interpreting it in a negative way. But when you pause, you interrupt that pattern. You give yourself time to respond wisely. Instead of reacting with worry, you respond with clarity. Instead of reacting with fear, you respond with reason. This small pause can completely change how your mind processes situations. It turns chaos into calm. And over time, this becomes natural. You start responding with intention instead of emotion. This is how mental strength develops. There is also a deeper level of understanding that begins to grow when you practice Stoic habits. You start to realize that many things you once worried about were never truly important. Your mind gave them importance because you allowed it to, but when you step back and observe life from a broader perspective, you begin to see what truly matters and what does not. Most worries are temporary. Most problems pass. Most fears fade with time. And realizing this reduces the weight you place on everything. You stop treating every challenge as a crisis. You start seeing challenges as part of life. And that shift brings calmness. Another important Stoic habit is learning to reduce mental noise. Modern life constantly pushes information into your mind. Notifications, news, conversations, endless content. It never stops. But your mind needs space to think clearly. Without space, it becomes overwhelmed. And when the mind is overwhelmed, overthinking increases. The Stoics valued quiet not because they disliked the world, but because they understood the importance of reflection. Quiet moments allow your mind to organize itself. They allow clarity to appear naturally. You do not need to force calmness. You simply need to create the conditions for it, and silence is one of those conditions. Even small moments of quiet can change how you feel. When you step away from noise, your thoughts slow down. Your breathing becomes steady. Your mind becomes clearer. This is why calmness often comes when you give yourself time alone to think without distractions. Another powerful habit is learning to question your assumptions. Overthinking often begins with assumptions that may not be true. You assume something will fail. You assume someone meant something negative. You assume the worst outcome. But assumptions are not facts. And when you challenge them, your perspective changes. You begin asking yourself questions that bring clarity. Is this thought actually true? Do I have evidence for this worry? Is this situation really as serious as my mind believes? Often, the answer reveals that your worry was unnecessary. This habit trains your mind to think rationally instead of emotionally. And rational thinking reduces anxiety. There is also a sense of freedom that comes from realizing that not everything deserves your attention. Your energy is limited. Your focus is valuable, and where you place your attention determines how you feel. If you constantly focus on problems, your mind becomes heavy. If you focus on growth, your mind becomes stronger. The Stoics were very careful with their attention. They chose what to think about. They chose what to give importance. And you can do the same. You can decide what deserves space in your mind. And that decision protects your peace. Another Stoic practice that helps stop overthinking is learning to accept uncertainty without panic. Many people struggle because they want clear answers immediately. They want certainty before taking action. But life rarely provides that. Uncertainty is part of every journey, and resisting it only creates stress. The Stoics trained themselves to remain calm even when the future was unclear. Instead of trying to predict everything, they focused on being prepared. Prepared to adapt, prepared to respond, prepared to stay strong. This mindset removes pressure from your mind. You do not need to know everything in advance. You only need to trust your ability to handle whatever comes. And that trust creates calmness. As you continue practicing these habits, something remarkable happens. Your mind begins to slow down naturally. Thoughts still appear, but they no longer control you. You observe them. You evaluate them. You decide whether they deserve your attention. And this process becomes easier with time. You become mentally stronger, not because life becomes easier, but because your response becomes wiser. This is what Stoicism teaches. It does not promise a life without challenges. It teaches you how to remain calm within them. There is also a deep sense of clarity that comes when you stop fighting every thought. Many people try to force their minds to be quiet. They try to eliminate all negative thoughts. But the mind does not work that way. Thoughts will always appear. The goal is not to stop them. The goal is to manage them. When you understand this, you stop struggling with your mind. Instead, you guide it, you direct it. You train it, and over time, it becomes calmer naturally. This is the power of Stoic habits. They do not create temporary motivation. They create lasting mental strength. A strength that helps you handle stress, uncertainty, and challenges without losing your peace. And that is something truly valuable. Because in a world full of noise and pressure, a calm mind is rare. But it is possible, and you are already building it. There is a moment in your journey where you begin to notice something subtle but powerful. Your mind is no longer as loud as it used to be. The constant noise, the endless questions, the repeated worries, they begin to fade. Not completely, but enough for you to recognize the difference. And in that space, something new appears. Clarity. At first, it feels unfamiliar. You are used to chaos. You are used to thinking about everything at once. But now, your thoughts begin to slow down. You start seeing situations for what they truly are, not what your fear makes them seem. This is the beginning of mental freedom. But to reach this stage, you must go through something most people avoid, facing your thoughts without distraction. No phone, no noise, No escape, just you and your mind. And this is where the real work happens. Because when you sit in silence, your thoughts come forward. The worries you've been avoiding, the fears you've been pushing aside, the doubts you didn't want to confront. It can feel uncomfortable, but it is necessary. Because you cannot calm a mind you refuse to understand. The Stoics believed that self-awareness is the foundation of peace. If you do not know how your mind works, you cannot control it. If you do not understand your patterns, you will keep repeating them. So instead of running, you stay. You observe, you listen, and slowly, you begin to understand yourself on a deeper level. You notice how certain thoughts trigger anxiety. You notice how certain situations lead to overthinking. You notice the patterns that keep repeating. And once you see them clearly, you can begin to change them. This is where transformation truly begins. Not on the outside, but within. There is also a powerful shift that happens when you stop identifying with every thought. Before, every thought felt personal. Every worry felt real. Every fear felt important. But now, you start to see thoughts as separate from who you are. They are not you. They are just mental events. And this realization changes everything. Because if thoughts are not you, then you do not have to follow them. You do not have to believe them. You do not have to react to them. You can simply observe them and let them pass. Like clouds in the sky. This is what creates inner peace. Not the absence of thoughts, but the ability to let them come and go without disturbance. Another powerful habit is learning to return to your breath. It may seem simple, but it is incredibly effective. Your breath is always present. It is always steady. And when your mind becomes overwhelmed, focusing on your breath brings you back to the present. It anchors you. It calms you. It gives you a moment of control. And sometimes, that moment is all you need to break the cycle of overthinking. The Stoics didn't use modern terms like mindfulness, but their practices reflected the same principles. They trained themselves to stay present, to remain aware, and to avoid being carried away by unnecessary thoughts. And you can do the same. With practice, it becomes natural. You begin to notice when your mind drifts. You gently bring it back, again and again, until staying present becomes your default. There is also a deeper level of acceptance that develops over time. Not just acceptance of situations, but acceptance of yourself. You begin to accept that you are not perfect, that you will make mistakes, that you will have moments of doubt. And instead of fighting these realities, you embrace them. Because you understand that growth is not about perfection. It is about progress. This acceptance removes pressure from your mind. You no longer feel the need to control it. Understand that growth is not about perfection. It is about progress. This acceptance removes pressure from your mind. You no longer feel the need to control everything. You allow yourself to be human, and in doing so, you find peace. Another important realization is that your thoughts are heavily influenced by what you consume. The information you take in, the conversations you engage in, the environment you surround yourself with, it all shapes your thinking. If you constantly expose your mind to negativity, your thoughts will reflect that. If you fill your mind with noise, your thoughts will become chaotic. But if you choose your inputs carefully, your mind becomes clearer, more focused, more calm. This is why the Stoics emphasized intentional living. They understood that what you allow into your mind matters. So you become selective. You choose what you watch, what you listen to, what you engage with. Because you understand that your mind is shaped by these choices. And protecting your mind protects your peace. As you continue this journey, you will also notice that your tolerance for unnecessary stress decreases. Things that once bothered you no longer have the same effect. You stop overreacting. You stop overanalyzing. You start responding with calmness. And that calmness becomes your strength. Because in a world where most people are reactive, being calm gives you an advantage. You think clearly. You act wisely. You remain in control. And that control allows you to handle situations more effectively. There is also a deeper sense of patience that develops. You stop expecting immediate answers. You stop rushing decisions. You give yourself time to think clearly. Because you understand that rushed thinking leads to overthinking. But patient thinking leads to clarity. This patience allows your mind to settle. It allows solutions to appear naturally. And it reduces unnecessary stress. You begin to trust the process. You understand that not everything needs to be solved instantly, and that understanding brings peace. Another powerful shift is learning to let go of mental clutter. Many thoughts you carry are unnecessary. Old worries, past mistakes, future fears. They take up space in your mind without adding value. But when you let them go, your mind becomes lighter, more focused, more present. Letting go is not about forgetting. It is about choosing not to carry what no longer serves you. And that choice frees your mind. As you continue applying these Stoic habits, you will begin to feel different. Not dramatically at first, but gradually. You feel calmer, more grounded, less overwhelmed. And over time, this becomes your new normal. A calm mind is no longer something you chase. It is something you live with. And that is powerful, because it changes how you experience everything. Your challenges, your relationships, your goals, your life. Everything becomes clearer when your mind is calm. And everything becomes manageable, because you are no longer fighting your thoughts. You are guiding them. There is a quiet strength that begins to form within you when you truly start mastering your mind. It is not loud. It does not seek attention. It does not need validation. But it is there, steady, grounded, and unshakable. You begin to notice that situations that once overwhelmed you no longer carry the same weight. Problems still exist, challenges still arise, but your reaction is different. You don't panic, you don't spiral, you pause, you observe, and you respond with clarity. And that difference changes everything. Because life is not about avoiding difficulty. It is about developing the strength to handle it without losing yourself. When your mind is calm, your decisions improve. You think more clearly. You act with intention. You stop making choices based on fear or impulse, and you start making choices based on reason. This is where real growth becomes visible, not just in how you feel, but in how you live. You begin to carry yourself differently. There is a certain presence about you. A quiet confidence. A sense of control. People may not be able to explain it, but they will notice it because calmness stands out in a world full of chaos. Another powerful realization begins to take shape. You don't need to engage with everything. Not every thought deserves your attention. Not every situation requires your reaction. Not every opinion needs your response. And this realization protects your peace. You become more selective, more intentional, more focused. Instead of being pulled in different directions, you stay centered. And that centeredness becomes your strength. There is also a deeper sense of trust that develops within you. You start trusting your ability to handle life. You no longer feel the need to predict every outcome or control every situation. You understand that whatever happens, you will deal with it, and that trust removes a huge weight from your mind. Because overthinking often comes from the fear of not being able to handle what might happen. But when you trust yourself, that fear fades. You no longer need to know everything in advance. You are comfortable with uncertainty. You are prepared, not anxious. And that mindset creates freedom. Freedom from constant worry. Freedom from mental exhaustion. Freedom from unnecessary stress. As you continue on this path, your relationship with time also changes. You stop living in the past. You stop worrying about the future. You begin to appreciate the present moment more deeply. Because you realize that the present is all you truly have. The past is gone. The future is uncertain. But the present is real. And when your mind is calm, you can actually experience it. You notice small things more. You feel more connected. You become more aware. And that awareness brings a sense of peace that overthinking could never give you. There is also a shift in how you view challenges. Instead of seeing them as problems, you begin to see them as opportunities to practice your discipline. Every difficult moment becomes a chance to stay calm. Every stressful situation becomes a test of your control. And instead of avoiding these moments, you embrace them. Because you know they are shaping you. They are strengthening you. They are preparing you. This is the Stoic mindset. It does not run from difficulty. It uses difficulty as a tool for growth. And when you adopt this mindset, nothing feels wasted. Every experience has value. Every challenge has purpose. And that understanding changes how you approach life. You become more resilient, more adaptable, more composed. Another important shift is learning to be comfortable with stillness. Many people fear stillness because it forces them to face their thoughts. But you have learned to sit with yourself. To be alone without feeling lonely. To be quiet without feeling restless. And in that stillness, you find clarity. You find peace. You find yourself. This ability is rare, but it is powerful. Because when you are comfortable with stillness, you are no longer dependent on distractions to feel okay. You are stable on your own. And that stability gives you strength. As you continue practicing these habits, you will notice that your life begins to feel simpler. Not because everything is perfect, but because your mind is no longer complicating everything. You stop overanalyzing every decision. You stop worrying about every possibility. You stop creating unnecessary stress, and life becomes easier to manage, more peaceful, more enjoyable. This is what happens when you take control of your mind. You don't change the world. You change how you experience it, and that changes everything. So if you are listening to this right now, take a moment. Breathe. Recognize how far you've come. Even if it doesn't feel like much, every step matters. Every moment you chose awareness over reaction. Every time you paused instead of overthinking. Every effort you made to calm your mind, it all counts. You are building something powerful, something that cannot be taken from you. A calm, disciplined, focused mind. And once you have that, you can handle anything. So keep going, keep practicing, keep choosing control over chaos. Because the version of you with a calm mind is not just more peaceful. It is more powerful. There comes a point in your journey where you begin to realize that peace was never something outside of you. It was never in perfect circumstances, perfect people, or perfect outcomes. It was always within you, waiting for you to remove the noise, the fear, and the unnecessary thoughts that were covering it. And once you begin to experience even a small amount of that peace, everything changes. You stop chasing it, you start protecting it, you become more aware of what disturbs your mind. You notice the environments that drain you, the conversations that trigger overthinking, the habits that pull you back into chaos. And instead of ignoring these things, you begin to make adjustments. You choose better, not out of pressure, but out of understanding. Because now you know what it feels like to have a calm mind, and you don't want to lose it. This is where your growth becomes intentional. You are no longer reacting to life. You are shaping it one decision at a time, one thought at a time, one habit at a time, and this intentional living creates a powerful sense of control. Not control over everything, but control over what truly matters, yourself. There is also a deeper sense of discipline that forms at this stage. Not the kind that feels forced or exhausting, but the kind that feels natural. You don't have to fight yourself as much anymore. You don't have to constantly remind yourself to stay calm, because it has become part of who you are. You've trained your mind. You've built awareness. You've created new patterns. And now, those patterns support you instead of working against you. This is the reward of consistency. This is what happens when you don't give up on yourself. You begin to trust your own mind, and that trust is powerful. Because when you trust your mind, you stop doubting every decision. You stop second-guessing yourself. You move forward with confidence, even when things are uncertain. Not because you know the outcome, but because you know you can handle it, and that mindset removes a huge amount of stress from your life. There is also a quiet sense of independence that comes with this transformation. You are no longer dependent on external things to feel okay. You don't need constant entertainment. You don't need constant validation. You don't need everything to go your way. You are stable within yourself. And that stability is rare, because most people are controlled by what happens around them. But you are different. You have learned to remain steady, even when life is not, and that gives you an advantage in every area of your life. You think more clearly. You make better decisions. You handle pressure more effectively. And over time, these small advantages create big results. Another powerful realization is that peace is something you must protect daily. It is not a one-time achievement. It is a practice. Every day, you will face thoughts that try to pull you back into overthinking. Every day, you will encounter situations that test your calmness. And every day, you will have a choice: to react or to respond, to worry or to stay present, to lose control or to remain grounded. And the more you choose calmness, the stronger it becomes. The more you choose awareness, the easier it gets. Until one day, it becomes your default. And that is when you truly take control of your mind. There is also a deeper appreciation for simplicity that develops. You begin to realize that a simple life is often a peaceful life. Not simple in terms of lacking ambition, but simple in terms of clarity. You know what matters. You focus on it, you let go of what doesn't. And this clarity removes confusion. It removes unnecessary stress. It allows you to move forward with purpose. Instead of being distracted by everything, you stay focused on what truly adds value to your life. And that focus brings calmness, because your mind is no longer scattered. It is directed, intentional, clear. As you continue on this path, you will notice something else. You become less affected by other people's opinions. Before, you may have overthought what others said. You may have worried about how you were perceived. You may have felt the need to explain yourself. But now, you are different. You understand that you cannot control how others think. And more importantly, you realize that you don't need to. You are secure in yourself. You trust your path. You move with confidence. And that confidence protects your peace. Because you are no longer seeking approval. You are living with intention. There is also a strong sense of gratitude that begins to grow within you. Not forced gratitude, but genuine appreciation. You appreciate calm moments. You appreciate clarity. You appreciate the ability to think without chaos. Because you know what it feels like to be overwhelmed. And now that you have experienced peace, even in small amounts, you value it more. This gratitude reinforces your mindset. It keeps you grounded. It reminds you of how far you've come. And it motivates you to keep going. Because you don't want to go back. You don't want to return to a restless mind. You don't want to live in constant worry. You have seen another way, and you choose it every single day. So as you reach this point, understand this clearly. You are not trying to become someone else. You are returning to who you were always meant to be, a person with a calm mind, a clear perspective, a strong sense of control, a peaceful presence. That version of you has always existed. It was just hidden under layers of overthinking, fear, and distraction. And now, you are removing those layers. Slowly, consistently, powerfully. So keep going. even when it feels difficult, even when your mind tries to pull you back, even when progress feels slow, because every step you take is bringing you closer to that version of yourself. And one day, you will look back and realize something incredible. The things that once overwhelmed you no longer affect you. The thoughts that once controlled you no longer have power over you. The life that once felt stressful now feels manageable, peaceful, clear, and that is when you will truly understand the power of mastering your mind. If this message has helped you even a little, don't let it stop here. Subscribe to this channel for more powerful Stoic wisdom that will help you build a calm mind, strong discipline, and unshakable inner peace. Because when you master your mind, you master your life.